Hi, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining us in today's webinar about creating an account-based marketing tech stack. So as we wait for people to filter in over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to put a little question in the chat here where you guys poll, you can tell me your level of experience with account-based marketing. Let me just set this up here. All right, so if you can let me know what your level of experience and comfort with ABM is, that'll help me probably tailor this a little bit better to what you guys need to know. Looks like, yeah, it's about right. So typically this is the first series that Ocean has done on account-based marketing, but it's not the first webinar in that series. So we've had a couple previously before now that go over the basics of like, what is ABM? How do you get started with it? All of that kind of thing. So we're not going to go into the theory very much, a little bit, but mostly we're just talking tech stack today. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't already, you guys check out those webinars from before. I can send you a link. Actually, we'll put links to that in the email, the follow-up email that we send everybody tomorrow. And let me get started here. Great. Okay. As we go along, you guys feel free to put questions in the chat. I have Alex, who's slightly off camera here. You guys can't see her, but she is looking at questions and checking the chat this whole webinar. So as questions come up, you don't need to wait to the end. We are going to do a Q&A, so fire away, and then Alex is going to be helping me out sending those questions along, and we'll take that at the end. So hopefully, if I can keep my talking to a minimum, we'll have about 20 minutes of learning and then about 10 minutes of Q&A. And we won't cut off the Q&A if you guys have to jump to your next meeting or whatever. That's totally cool. I will stay here and answer questions as long as I can. All right. So the first thing, we're going to talk about tech stack and tools a whole lot in the next half hour. And so before we get started, I just want to underline the idea that while we're talking about tools and software a whole lot, that's not what ABM is. ABM is an actual strategy. It's how you do your marketing. It's not the tool that you use to do marketing. You can do ABM without any tools at all. So don't go thinking that you need to buy ABM. That's not the case. And as I mentioned, we have some other webinars in this series about ABM. And this is a borrowed slide from one of those. So hopefully some of you guys might recognize this. But basically the type of tech stack that makes sense for you guys to build is hugely dependent on your company and the type of ABM that you're running. And the easiest rule of thumb to determine what type of ABM you need to do, and therefore what kind of stack you need to build to support it, is what is your average sale price? If you guys are selling huge deals, then you need to give a lot more attention to each account, and you can afford to give a lot more attention to each account. So certain things might make sense that otherwise might not, like, for example, building a custom landing page for every account. If you have 300 accounts, that might make sense. If you have 30,000 accounts, probably not. So this is all just to say there is not a one size fits all. If you're hoping to get an answer to what exact tech stack and tool set should I build, sorry. Okay, so this is the money slide. This is basically everything that we're about to talk about, all laid out on one slide. So there's 4 key pieces here that I want you to look at, and that's foundational infrastructure, account selection, engagement, and measurement. This is a rule of thumb. So it's not meant to be all encompassing or a totally exhaustive list. If you guys can think of tool types that you've used in ABM or that you would want to use in ABM that are not represented here, pop that in the chat because I'm actually really interested to see those. So let's get into this. And for those of you who are like me and obsessively take notes, you don't need to. We will send you guys a recording of this entire session tomorrow, along with these 4 quadrants that I just mentioned, but laid out as a checklist in a spreadsheet so that you guys can kind of map out your stack and make it a little bit easier to see, are there holes in your planning or not? Okay, first one, foundational infrastructure. I'm actually not going to talk about this one very much, just due to the nature that it's foundational. And that means you probably already have it, and it's really, really painful to replace. So there's not a whole lot of value of digging deep into like what type of CRM, because you're probably not going to change it. But the last two items here, number 5 and 6, I do want to talk about those. Hopefully your systems are connected to each other, either through out-of-the-box integrations or some third-party system. But if not, that's really useful to have, especially in account-based marketing. So when marketing and sales are working the same accounts in tandem, interchangeably at the same time, it's really important that each can see what the other's doing. So if somebody from your target account list has a conversation with your social media manager on Twitter, for example, the account executive who owns that account needs to know. So we use Zapier. You can spend basically as much money as you want to here connecting all your tools. And obviously, the more you spend, typically the better the creature comforts. Zapier, it does an okay job. It's okay. It can connect a huge number of tools and it's really cheap. So if you're just getting started, that's what I would recommend. Check out Zapier or If This Then That. They're really simple tools. And you can do things like put those notifications into your CRM, whatever that is. That would be this top screenshot there that you see. Or you can pop that into Slack. It kind of depends on how you guys work. But these are two examples of notifications that we use internally. Okay, so this is the opposite. Account selection is where I get really passionate, and I will do my best not to get on a soapbox here because we need to keep it relatively short to save time for questions. But there's a lot here, and I will try not to talk too much about this. But I just want to talk about the difference between ABM and traditional marketing, maybe inbound marketing, where you're putting your message out to the world and, for lack of a better word, hoping that the right people will find it and come to you. Account-based marketing, you will not get lucky. You won't have people that you were not trying to communicate accidentally fall into your lap, because what you're doing is very outbound driven. You have targeted this set list of accounts and you're going after them. Maybe you're sending them emails, maybe you're talking to them on Twitter. You might have built a landing page specifically for them. So if you get the accounts wrong up front, you're doomed. That's it. It's guaranteed failure. So that's why I think it's so surprising that the people that I talk to who are doing ABM, it's funny, selecting the accounts that they're going to go after is super commonly like the very last thing that people do. They'll have a vague idea of what accounts they want to go after, but like they build the whole campaign and then like, great, this campaign looks awesome. Who are we going to send it to? Don't do that. That's a really bad idea. Build your campaigns specifically for the list that you have. So the list is first. Select your accounts first. Another couple of mistakes that I see are people going after logo lists. That definitely has a place in account-based marketing. Account-based marketing is actually a really great way to get your logo list. If you're trying to get penetration into a new market or a new vertical or whatever, new geo, you can go and get some good accounts that you can reference and leverage their credibility. That's a great use for ABM. But unless you're selling like big enterprise deals, don't put all your eggs in that basket. Okay, then you need to narrow in on your ICP like a lot. Whatever you're thinking, times that by 10. And I want to stress the idea that the commercial side of the business, I assume it's primarily sales, marketing, operations that are here on this call. I should have put that in the chat. We don't get to choose what the ideal customer profile is, not at all. Our job is to uncover what the ideal customer profile is. It's product, it's the engineering team, that's who chooses the ideal customer profile. It's not who you want to win. Your logo list is not your ICP. Your ICP is not just the customers who renew, but the customers who expand, who come back and buy more, because you have solved such a painful problem for them that they're thrilled and they want more. That's your ICP. Okay. And then another mistake that I see is people who do not focus on companies. account-based marketing should be based on accounts. So I'll give you an example here. This is how not to do it. This is the most common way of building an account list that I've ever seen by a long shot, which is people will run a search, maybe in their CRM, maybe in a third-party data tool, and it'll be something along the lines of find me job title in industry code. And right there, you're not searching for companies. It's not an account-based list. That's a person-based list. And actually, it's a job title-based list. What if they call their sales directors, they get trendy and they call them, I don't know, growth directors or something like that, or business development? You'd probably add another filter for that one. But if they use something non-standard there, you're going to miss them. And not just the person, but the entire account. And then the other one, if you're using these industry codes, computer software industry is what I've got up here. I can't think of a company that neatly fits into a single industry code, right? It's usually multiple. So if you were looking for companies that make banking apps, this is a terrible example. Let's run with it anyway. Banking apps. They could be software and services. They could be mobile devices or mobile software, or they could be like financial services. You could make an argument that they could be placed in any of those. And so what you're basically doing when you search that way is guessing which industry code the database that you're looking at used to classify that company. And you multiply that by all the companies in your target account list. There's so much variation there. So using just like one industry code or one or two industry codes, you're going to cut off an enormous amount of your applicable target list. So that's just not a good way to build your list. So how should you build lists? There are 4 steps that you should do in order. And the first one is really painful, and you should do it to the absolute minimum degree that you can get away with, which is CRM data cleanup. I think most of us can probably think of a time where we've worked somewhere where the data was a mess. And people were like, oh yeah, we can't use our CRM, that data's a mess. But it's the only data you have. So you have a responsibility to do the absolute minimum required to get it to a point where you can just figure out the next step, which is segmentation analysis. And that is looking through your sales and your renewal or retention pipeline and deciding who is it that is our best fit customer. So doing that segmentation analysis is, again, it's pretty manual. So you can probably use some of the built-in reporting features in your CRM if you have something like Salesforce or HubSpot, but you might have to default to a spreadsheet. Or I guess Ocean is the only platform that I know of that can actually do that out of the box. You plug in Ocean to your CRM and it will do that whole thing for you, tell you these customers pay more, they buy faster, you have a better ability to win. And then once you know what accounts you even should be going after because you've cleaned your data enough to do a segmentation, you've done that legwork and you know who buys and who's happy and who comes back, then you go out and you find all the applicable accounts. And you should search on the account level, not on the person level. And then once you have that, set up buying signals. So you can set up your account list and then you need to know, okay, when should we reach out to these guys? When are they in market? So all 3 are of those things after you clean your CRM data. I'm not probably going to talk too much about the specific tools, just because I think that would get really long. But basically for any of these, I'm going to go for each section. I'm going to give you guys actual recommendations for tools. But for each of these sections, you can spend as much or as little money as you want to. So yeah, I'll give you a full list of all the tools that I've recommended and mentioned in here, just so that you guys can at the very least use it as a jumping off point when you're deciding, okay, maybe we want to add a tool in that space in the checklist. What is there that's out there? And then you can get a handful of these names that you can use as references because you can just search like company name competitors, right? And then that'll give you a bunch of companies that you can look at. So that's why I'm putting this up on the screen. I'm not going to walk you through each of these. We will go through examples of actual companies' tech stacks for ABM at the end here. I think you guys are going to be surprised how little you need. Okay, moving on. The next one, engagement. I think this is the category that most people think of when they're talking about tech stack. This is the stuff where you're actually sending the campaigns and building the campaigns in these tools. There's a ton. So actually, I left a little space here on this slide in case there's a category that I forgot, and maybe somebody can pop that in the chat if they notice something. But there's a ton here. And again, what you should pick, there's no right or wrong answer. It's really more about the budget that you have, the people that you're going after, the accounts that you're going after. Where are they? Wherever your target audience is, you need to get your message there. And that might mean that you are using content syndication to get onto Business Insider or something. Or maybe that means that you're on Twitter, depending on your audience. All right. And then measurement tools. So this is a really important one. Fortunately, account-based marketing is super easy to measure. You can, at the top level, you basically just look at your total number of accounts, and then you look at your total number of spend, and you see of those target accounts that we named, how many of those converted and became customers, and there you have your cost per customer. And then you can just work that backwards. How many of those had a sales conversation? How many of those interacted with us on some level at all? And you can work out the price for all of those interactions. Very easy to measure. What's not as easy to measure is midstream, before the campaigns, before the program is done. How do you make adjustments? Because not everything's going to work. And so there, I would recommend that you look at measurement tools, analytics, business intelligence. This would be like looking at your sales funnel and how do things convert through the sales funnel. And then testing and optimization, there's a bunch of things that could potentially fall under that. I mostly just added things that are like website tools, landing page tools, split testing tools, that sort of thing. But I mean, there are so many things that could be considered testing and optimization. That's a big bucket. So let's jump into the examples. Oh goodness, I got 3 minutes. All right, I'll hurry up, guys. So this is an example tech stack that I made up, assuming it's a small team that want to run account-based marketing, 5 users. They don't want to use any free tools, and they're planning on doing outreach on a bunch of different mediums. The total cost from the ground up, including like CRM and website and all that stuff that you probably already have, is $11,600 a year. That does not include ad spend. That does not include people's time. So this is not an all-inclusive calculation of here's what an ABM program would cost. This is just the tech stack. But you can use a lot of open source tools or a lot of free tools. You could even get this cost a little lower if you were using some of the free versions of these tools, but everything on here is a paid version. So I can send out these examples. You don't need to read through each and every one, but just to show you how you might use the tech stack document that I'll send you tomorrow, as well as the tool list. You can pop things in there and map what you guys are doing. Okay, so this is our tech stack. And there's actually a couple of things now that I'm looking at this that I left off that I should add probably. But we basically use HubSpot for the vast majority of things. We're a very small team, and having everything integrated in one platform allows us to be pretty fast as long as we don't want to play outside of the walled garden. There are definite limitations to HubSpot. It can't do all, especially within reporting, it can't do all the things that we want. It is not good at account level reporting. So if you guys are considering HubSpot, or if you have HubSpot, that, in my opinion, is a growth area there. But all of these other tools I can definitely recommend, especially Publer. I don't have a social media marketing person in-house, and this allows us to automate and reuse a lot of stuff. Really great. I love that one. This is a real company that I've anonymized at their request because they don't want everyone to know their tech stack, obviously. And the main stack, they have a data provider, and then they are primarily doing direct outreach via email, via SDR phone calls, and then LinkedIn. and they're covering as much ground as they possibly can with a very small dedicated team here by way of using automation. So you'll notice in there, there's LinkedIn automation is point number 3. This is a gray area. I believe it's against LinkedIn's terms of service. They're using it. That's why I put it in here. That's also partly why they're anonymous. Be careful. Use that at your own risk. It is very effective from them, from what this person has told me. You'll have to weigh that out. But basically doing a lot of outbound messaging, emailing, LinkedIn messaging and connecting, and then connecting it all through Zapier, very much like Ocean's doing. Okay, and this one is a several hundred person company, and they have offices on 3 continents. So they're not small. And the ABM that they're running that is producing good results for them is actually a very small stack. It's basically HubSpot all the way through, and then they run some ads. And it, again, is very outbound driven, both from a marketing and a sales perspective. I don't have any really huge, crazy tech stacks. This is intended to be more of a ABM, not 101, but 201. So if you guys are interested in like a deep dive into some really cool setups, that's something we can do. But this hopefully gives you guys an idea of if you're just looking at getting started, or if you're trying to fact check your own first attempt at ABM. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of confidence that you can get started. You don't need a huge tech stack, and it's definitely doable as long as you check all your boxes. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for questions. Alex is going to help me with the chat. So if you guys have questions, go ahead and enter them in the chat, and I will do my best to get you an answer. If you manage to stump me, I will get my Google Foo on, or I will reach out to my network and find an answer, and I'll get back to you. So if you write a question in the chat, you will get an answer. I might not be able to answer it here on this call. All right, let's check the chat here. Any questions? I have a question here from Imran. What is the advertising tools? So advertising tools, you can use a third-party platform that helps you handle all of your various ad channels, for example, Google Analytics or LinkedIn advertising, etc. Could be social media advertising, or you could be doing, for example, display ads. So there are tools that help you do that. And some of them, let me back up here. Oh goodness, I went too far here. All right, so the ad tools might be something that helps you do keyword research, or it helps you look at how competitive a certain space is for ads. So they can make you much more effective in creating your ads. Yeah, definitely. If you're doing ads, like paid ads, paid search, paid social, anything like that, and you don't have, for example, SEMrush or Ahrefs, or you're not using Google Keyword Planner, check that out. That'll help you. I have a question here from Alex. What number of accounts per rep would you recommend for ABM capacity? It's a great question. So the answer there, like everything, it depends. It depends on your average sale price. So how many deals does your average rep need to close in a month or a quarter, whatever you report on, in order to hit their target? And then looking backwards from there, what is your conversion rate? So once you get an opportunity into the sales pipeline, on average, what is the percentage that you will convert to a closed won sale? And then you need to look at your ability there to get people to sales. So if your MQLs convert at 60% over to sales, then you can figure out, okay, how many opportunities does each rep need from those MQLs? in order to hit their target if they do average performance. And then you can kind of calculate out what should that be. But it's very dependent on your conversion rate and your average sale price and your AE quota. Great question. Emily, when is best to use direct mail platforms like ReachDesk? At which stage of the ABM journey? That's a great question. If I'm not mistaken, Emily is from ReachDesk. So there's not really, so which stage of the ABM journey? Does that mean like the prospect's journey with you, or like when you're getting started? There's no wrong answer there. Sending something in the mail to somebody is a great way of getting their attention, especially because now we get less and less physical mailers all the time. And opening up a gift from another company is a good way to get somebody's attention. Actually, the most recent example, I got somebody who sent me a t-shirt. It was a t-shirt company, and they just sent me a t-shirt with Ocean's logo on the t-shirt in the mail, and it absolutely got my attention. So there's not really a wrong answer to that one. Benoit, same question as Mike's. Have you planned to develop an integration between Ocean and Fresh Sales? So I don't know that that is on our development roadmap at the moment. I'll have to check with our development team. So you stumped me. I'm going to have to come back to you on that one. Other questions. We've got one from Eliza. In regards to starting your ABM journey, is there a certain tech that you think is a must, the first one to buy? It's a good question. The first one, you can get away with a lot of free tools. So you don't necessarily need to buy anything, but you do have to have a way to record your interaction with these companies. So I'd say CRM, and you can use a lot of things as a CRM. If you're really, really bootstrapping, like solo founder sort of thing, you can actually use project management tools like Monday.com, or Trello even. From Vivi, if you are already using HubSpot, why use a different tool like Lemlist to send emails? Yeah, it's a good question. Orders of magnitude of different levels of feature and control and essentially power that you can use to send those emails out. I won't make a Lemlist advertisement here, but it's a great tool. And you can do a lot of things like domain warming, I believe, where you can warm up an external domain. So if you're sending cold emails, which I should just add a disclaimer, only do that in the US or outside of the EU in a place where that's legal. But it is legal in some places that you might want to sell to. So if you're doing that, typically you need to warm up an email domain. Don't send emails from your actual company's domain. For us, that would be ocean.io. Don't send cold emails from there. You will destroy your domain reputation, your sender reputation for the whole company. So spin up a separate domain and then start sending emails from email addresses on that domain. And then after you've done that for a while, then email servers around the world will recognize, okay, this is a domain that has sent emails, but you need to ramp up how many emails you send and do that relatively slowly. If you just go from you create the domain on Monday and then Tuesday you create a bunch of new email addresses and they just start blasting out thousands of emails, every email server on the planet will recognize that as probably not wanted emails. So you need to go a little bit slower and steadier and build it up. And Lemlist, I believe, has some pretty cool tools that can do things like that, as well as a lot better control for who you send to and how you send to. And it's a much more powerful emailing tool than HubSpot is. Good question. Are there any other questions before we sign off? All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining today. I hope this has been useful for you. You should let me know. My email is dsc@ocean.io. Just drop me a line. Let me know if you liked this webinar, if there was something that you were hoping I would answer that I didn't, or something that you learned. I'd love to hear from you guys. And have a fantastic Thursday. All right. Thank you very much. Bye.